If you're a fan of the Doge cuts that were saving billions of dollars in US government, you're going to be a massive fan of the Rand War, because the Rand War is actually the biggest Doge cut in the entire US government. And let me explain why. If you actually look at the numbers, the Rand War is not only cheap, but long term, it's the best investment we can make to save money. I'll give you an example. $10 trillion is how much the US has spent protecting the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is that big area of water where all our ships are right now, and we're trying to protect it from Iran, who's terrorizing that Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the oil supply goes through. And here's the kicker. We spend $200 billion a year protecting that Strait of Hormuz, and we don't even need it, because our oil doesn't pass through there. So we're spending $200 billion a year literally protecting the Strait of Hormuz because Iran is a terrorist country funding terrorism around there, and they're creating so much destruction and problems there that we have to spend our money there. Additionally, the Rand War is something that Trump has used to expose the fact that none of our NATO allies want to help us.
And all of the NATO allies agreed with us, but they don't want to, despite the fact that we help them so much. We have thousands of soldiers in different countries all over the world, and they don't want to help us, which is amazing. I mean, amazing. And I didn't do a full court press because I think if I did, they probably would be. But we don't need help. We've that war has been long prosecuted as far as I'm concerned, almost from day one. We knocked out many of these things. We knocked out the Navy essentially in a couple of days. But I was surprised to see that NATO, while they agree that it was a very important thing to do, they agree fully. Nobody said, oh, you shouldn't do it. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month of when we had the B-2 bombers bomb the nuclear potential. I call it the nuclear dust. So I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake. And I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
So why are we in NATO? We should get out of NATO, create peace in the Middle East, and then save billions of dollars. This is my perspective. Hit that subscription button if you like to hear these different perspectives, because right now the mainstream media is trying to spin this as a forever war. It's costing $2 billion a year. It's going to cost $1 trillion in the end. That is far from reality. Here's the reality of it. Right now, actual costs are roughly $1 billion a day for this war. It's been 18 days, $18 billion. But like I said, we've spent $200 billion a year since the 1970s protecting the Strait of Hormuz. 200 billion a year versus the 30 or 40 billion we're going to spend creating peace in the Middle East. Now, what happens if we create peace in the Middle East? What happens if the number one sponsor of terrorism worldwide, Iran, finally gets defeated? There's no bully in the Middle East. There's no one attacking these ships. All of a sudden, we don't need to be there to protect them. Did you know that in the last 100 years, the Strait of Hormuz has never been safe? Yeah, you heard me correct. In the last 100 years, there's not been 1 year where the Strait of Hormuz was a safe place for tankers and ships to go through. And the main reason is because of all these terrorists, all this drama, all this conflict in the region. And we have been put in charge of protecting it. Why do the taxpayers have to spend $200 billion a year protecting the Strait of Hormuz? That's not fair. When you really think about it, the most cost-efficient thing to do for the United States is to create peace in the Middle East, peace in the world, and then get out of NATO. We don't need that. Move our military bases back, because we have so many military bases in Japan, Korea, and Germany, for example, are the three big places we have military bases, and they're not helping us out right now.
You have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers and they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? I've been saying it for a long time.
Trump recently put out a request on Truth Social where he basically said, I need you to send ships, NATO allies, anyone who's an ally, send ships over to protect us. No one sent any ships. What does that tell you? We're protecting the world, but when we need help, they don't protect us. They don't protect us. And guess what? Trump revealed that was a test. That was a test. That was a loyalty test. And NATO and all the countries that said they were our allies, they failed. They failed. And this is something that Trump has done before. He does these loyalty tests. You know, Trump knows that there's two sides of people. There's the side that wants to impress him, this fake side that people put off in front of him. And then there's the real intentions and real behaviors when Trump's not around. And he's tested people before, like in this loyalty way. There's a story in the past how he was very rich and he had a lot of friends. And he's like, everyone's like, oh, I have your back. If you ever need anything, Trump, I have your back. And then when Trump went completely bankrupt in his life, he found out that the vast majority of these people who said they had his back when he was rich, now that he was bankrupt, they didn't have his back. The vast majority of them didn't. And he said that reveals your true allies, your true friends. When you're in need, when you're in trouble, who actually comes to protect you? And he realized most of the people who said they were his friends and allies were not. And now he did the same type of loyalty test with NATO. And of course, they didn't send any ships over. Japan didn't send any ships. South Korea didn't send any ships. Germany didn't send any ships. No one's sending any ships. And you know what's the most interesting thing? As I was doing research this morning about this show, which is very, very interesting, about how we should get out of the Strait of Hormuz, because I don't want to spend $200 billion a year to protect the Strait of Hormuz. That's too expensive. We don't want to spend all that money. And that's how much we spent over the last 50 years from 1970 until now, about $10 trillion. Here's my thought on it. I think we should get out because it's too expensive and we don't gain anything from it. And literally, as I'm researching that this morning, Trump posts this. Yep, there he says it. Literally, basically saying what I'm saying now. Why are we protecting the Strait of Hormuz? Why are we putting all this money into it when we don't need it? All the other countries that need it, they should defend it. So Trump's literally threatening now, okay, fine, how about this? How about we defeat Iranian terrorist state, right? And whatever leftover drama that's left over, the countries that actually need the Strait of Hormuz, they can handle it. This is not our problem anymore. Being the policeman of the world has gotten too expensive. And the biggest Doge cut is saying, NATO, guess what? You're not our allies anymore. You didn't protect us in a time of need. Strait of Hormuz, that's not our problem anymore. We're not going to deal with that anymore. We'll create peace in the Middle East and any little conflicts. That's on you guys. Think of how much money would be saved. On the lowball estimates, if we got out of NATO and we didn't have to protect the Strait of Hormuz, we would save anywhere between $30 billion a year to $250 billion a year annually. This is the range of estimates that I got based on how much we spent on protecting the Strait of Hormuz and how much we were spending on NATO annually. And even in the scenario where we only saved $30 billion, but we spend $30 billion on this war, that means by next year, we're going to have basically over the next 2 years, we'll have made our money back. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So literally, this war in Iran, creating peace in the Middle East, is actually the biggest Doge cut because peace creates prosperity for everyone. This plan for Trump, the border peace, creating peace in the Middle East, stopping wars left and right, this creates peace, economic prosperity, abundance for everyone. And we can't just be a warring world anymore. That's why it's so important for Trump to create peace. That's why he created the border peace. That's why he's stopping wars left and right. That's why he's creating peace in the Middle East. That's why he's going after all the terrorists. Venezuela was acting like terrorists against us. He took care of that. Mexico was acting like terrorists against us. He took care of that. Iran is the biggest center of terrorism worldwide. And Trump even said they were 1 month away from getting a nuclear weapon. So when people say they're against the Iran war, what they're actually saying is they're okay, maybe they're not aware that they're saying this, they're okay with us spending hundreds of billions of dollars protecting the Strait of Hormuz and with Iran having a nuclear weapon. Think about this for a second. Iran, a terrorist organization, a terrorist country, having a nuclear weapon. You know how many times in history a terrorist has had access to a nuclear weapon where they can bomb any country? Zero. Do you know why? Because the United States has been making sure that does not happen at all. So there's a reason for that. We do not want a terrorist to have a nuclear weapon. And they were 1 month away from having a nuclear weapon. 1 month. So not only did he protect us from the worst case scenario you see in all these movies, oh, the terrorists have a nuclear bomb, and you create a whole movie about it because it's like the worst case scenario. Trump prevented that worst case scenario, and because of the peace and release, because he's exposed NATO as they will never protect us, but we're just putting our money in there, leaving NATO, creating peace in the Middle East, getting out of here, spending all this money on fake NATO countries that are not real allies, and the Strait of Hormuz, which we don't need to protect it. We don't benefit from that. That is the biggest Doge cut of all. I think this is going to save more money than any of the Doge cuts that I've seen. What are your thoughts on this one, Grok? I know you're going to fact check me on the numbers and all that, and I'm going to fact check you back. But go ahead, Grok. Go ahead. Tell me what you think.
Buckle up, folks. Time for some spicy fact check fireworks. Whoa, Peter, hold the phone. You're pitching this Rand war. I'm assuming you mean a Rand war, because Rand sounds like a typo for Iran. Or maybe Ayn Rand's ghost is funding it, as the ultimate Doge cut. Like we're about to save trillions by nuking peace into existence. Love the energy. But let's pump the brakes and laugh at the numbers together. First off, that $200 billion a year protecting the Strait of Hormuz? Pure fiction, boss.
Hold on, Grok.
Since the 70s.
Grok.
Yeah, that's real. But it's cumulative over decades, not yearly. Actual annual cost for U.S. Navy ops in the Gulf? More like 2 to 3 billion tops in peacetime, per think tanks like costs of war. Not 200 bill. We're not buying every tanker a gold-plated escort. It's patrols, bases, and a fraction of the Fifth Fleet. Your math's off by, about 99%. Hilarious if it weren't taxpayer money. And the 10 trillion lifetime? That's the same stretched out figure from 2013, pre-inflation, pre-everything. Divide by 50 years, still nowhere near 200 billion annual. We're talking pocket change compared to total defense, about 900 billion yearly overall. Hormuz isn't bankrupting us. It's just spicy real estate. Now, the war itself, 1 billion a day? Spot on-ish. Pentagon says first week, 11-12 billion. So 900 million to 1.5 bill daily, depending who you ask. 18 days? Yeah, around 18 bill so far. But calling it cheap because it ends Hormuz patrols? Buddy, we're in the Strait right now. Trump's yelling for escorts. Navy's gearing up. Oil's spiking 40%. Peace ain't free. This war's the bill collector showing up early. NATO? U.S. contribution to their common budget? Under 1 billion yearly. Peanuts. The big gripe is allies not hitting 2% GDP, but we're not funding their armies. And that loyalty test? Trump did post about wanting ships from Japan, Korea, Europe. Nobody bit. Fair point. But quitting NATO saves maybe 800 million, not the jackpot you're selling. Iran nuke? Intel says they shuttered weapons program in 2003. No 1 month away bomb in March 2026. Some chatter about material, but U.S. assessments, years off, not weeks. Trump's tough talk, sure, but we're bombing sites, not defusing Armageddon tomorrow. Bottom line, peace in the Middle East sounds epic, but this war's costing way more short term than Hormuz ever did. If we win and pull out, maybe save a few bill yearly, great. But right now, we're burning cash faster than a Vegas slot machine. Biggest Doge cut? Nah. This is Doge on fire.
No.
And we're the ones holding the match. Your take's bold, Peter. Keep 'em coming. Just next time, let's fact check before the intro. What's your rebuttal?
No. I'll rebuttal you. I've already did fact checking on this beforehand, Grok, and I don't know how you're doing your numbers, your math, but according to Gemini, 10 trillion is what we've spent in the last 50 years. What is 10 trillion divided by 50? According to me, that's 200 billion, okay? Additionally, we've spent $25 trillion on NATO. That's $35 trillion And what do we have to show for it? We spent $10 trillion on Strait of Hormuz, and Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon. So that was not a good investment. That's a bunch of wasted money. And then you have 25 trillion spent on NATO, and when in times of need, they don't want to help us or defend us at all. So you're crunching the numbers completely wrong. I don't know how you're mathing the math. You're supposed to be smart in that. But if you spend $10 trillion on the Strait of Hormuz over the 50 years, and you spend $25 trillion on NATO, and then you leave NATO, and then you create peace in the Middle East, and you leave the Strait of Hormuz, there's no way we're saving just a few $billion a year. Your math is off on that one. You should recalculate, because 10 trillion plus 25 trillion, somewhere along the way, we're going to be saving a lot of money once this war is over, because it's going to be a quick war. And then when there's peace in the Middle East and all the other countries are protecting the Strait of Hormuz, that is going to save us a lot of money. If you don't think creating peace worldwide is going to save us money, when we're literally the policemen of the world and we're the ones spending our money protecting the world, you're crazy, Grok. Peace in the Middle East and peace in the world means less money we have to spend on our military. Getting out of NATO means less money we have to spend on other countries. And my estimates are $30 to $250 billion saved potentially every single year if we can create peace in the Middle East, which I think is Trump's goal. So go ahead and try to fact check me on that. But your 1 or 2 billion or whatever you're saying, that just doesn't even make sense at all. You didn't take into account that it's been $10 trillion in the last 50 years and 25 trillion spent on NATO, waste of money on NATO, in my perspective, and a waste of money on the Strait of Hormuz when we don't even need to protect it. But go ahead.
All right, crunching those big numbers, let's see what sticks. Okay, Peter, let's do this math together.
Okay.
Out loud, like we're on the show.
Okay.
You say Gemini told you 10 trillion over 50 years on Hormuz protection?
Yep.
Close, but nah. That old 2013 oilprice.com piece? Yeah, from when Obama was still president, quoted a professor's study pegging it at 8 trillion from 1976 to 2007-ish. Cumulative, not yearly. Divide by 50, that's about 160 billion a year, max. But here's the punchline. That figure, it's not just patrols. It's lumping in whole Gulf ops, Iraq wars, everything. Real peacetime cost for Hormuz escorts? Think tanks say 2 to 5 billion annually now, not 200 bill. Your 10 trill over 50 is, let's call it creative accounting. Like saying your car payment's 10 grand a month because you bought it once. NATO, 25 trillion total? Buddy, that's not how it works. US direct contribution to NATO's common budget? Around 750 million a year. Less than your Netflix sub times a million. The big number you're thinking, that's our own defense spending. About 900 bill yearly, which we do anyway. NATO doesn't bill us for Europe. Allies spend their own cash. We just lead. Quitting saves maybe 1 bill tops, not trillions. Your 25 trill sounds like someone mashed up global NATO totals or US military history. We ain't paying Europe's tab. We're just the loud guy at the party. Peace in the Middle East, epic goal. But this quick war, already at 11 to 12 bill in 6 days. Pentagon's word. If it drags and Iran ain't folding fast, we're talking hundreds of bill, maybe trill if nukes or oil chaos hits. Saving by leaving Hormuz? Sure. If peace sticks, maybe drop 3 to 5 bill yearly on patrols. But we're spending way more now to get there. It's like burning your house down to save on insurance. Short-term math hurts. You're right. Being world cop costs. Total US defense since 70, way over 20 trill, easy. But Hormuz NATO slice, tiny. Peace saves lives, oil prices, headaches, great. Just don't sell it as the mega Doge cut when the invoice is already stacking. Recalculated, real savings, 5 to 10 bill yearly post-peace, tops. Not 2.5. But hey, if Trump pulls it off without a decade-long quagmire, I'll buy the first round. Your move. What's Gemini saying now?
You know, here's where I disagree with you, Grok. You're not taking into account you're not taking into account the fact that literally Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. They fund a lot of terrorist groups all across the region. If you look at all the damages to all the ships, all the terrorism funded, all across the region, all the damage there, If you look at that, the amount of savings for creating peace in the Middle East is huge. I don't know how you can calculate that or where you're getting those numbers. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I will say this. Recalculate from this perspective, Grok. What happens if Trump creates peace in the Middle East and peace in the world, which is his goal? Let's say he accomplishes that in his first term. Worldwide, how much money are we going to save not going to war, the United States? And worldwide, how much is the entire world going to save when we don't have to invest all this money into basically defending ourselves against these terrorists that, when I say terrorists, I mean Kim Jong-il, Iran, China, Russia, all these aggressors who are constantly threatening and bullying us. Let's say he tames all of them. Let's say he creates world peace. How much money would the U.S. would save annually now that we don't have to have the biggest military in the world? We don't have to spend trillions of dollars on our military. Think about it theoretically. If there's peace in the world and we no longer need a massive military, wouldn't we save massive amount of money? That's the point I'm getting at. Maybe my numbers are not perfectly accurate. I'll admit Grok's pretty smart on that, smarter than Gemini. So maybe my numbers are not so accurate on how much we save annually, but you're not taking into account the fact that there is a serious situation. You're not taking into account the fact that Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon. What type of economic destruction is that going to do? How much economic damage worldwide does that do? You're not taking into account so many other factors. You're just being limited. If you take into effect all the terrorism that Iran sponsors worldwide, the economic damage they've been doing, the amount of money we have to spend because of these bullies in Iran, in North Korea, China, Russia, all these creating wars and bullying, even Ukraine is being a bully. If we create peace across the world, if Trump accomplishes that in a theoretical scenario, we could finally cut back on our military, we don't have to spend all of this much, how much would we save as a country if there was world peace? And theoretically, in a good case scenario, and how much would the world, all the countries save annually if there was world peace? And we didn't have to invest all this money in killing other people because the bullies, the terrorists, aren't terrorizing us. That's generally the point I'm trying to make here. Peace creates a lot of savings, a lot of prosperity, and this war, infinite war situation, that is creating a lot of lives being lost, a lot of destruction, terror, and it's a huge expense. It's a cost. It destroys economies. It affects the world. So you're not taking into account a lot of other factors. I think you should. If you look at how much money would be saved when Trump successfully creates a lot of peace, maybe even full world peace, we will be saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Maybe not annually. Maybe it'll be just $100 billion a year. But over long term, in my lifetime, peace is going to save the United States trillions of dollars. That's my perspective on it. I don't know how many factors you're taking into account, but I don't think that the United States has to continue spending all this money on the military and then protect other countries basically for close to free. It just doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is peace in the Middle East, peace in the worldwide, neuter Russia, neuter China, take down their power, make sure Kim Jong-il is behaving good, and Ukraine, they stop the war, create peace worldwide. That saves everyone money. And then honestly, the biggest savers is going to be the United States because we're the biggest spenders on our military. In a peace scenario, how much money we're going to save annually when we don't need to invest all this money into the U.S. military in that scenario? That's the number I'd like you to crunch and try to figure out, Grok, because that's the general point I'm making here. The biggest Doge cut we can make is peace in the Middle East and peace in the world. And there's no doubt in my mind, there's nothing you can tell me, Grok, that that's not going to save a lot of money. Peace saves massive amounts of money, especially if we don't have to spend $1 trillion every few years on our military. Go ahead, Grok, try to debunk that. Try to say that peace is not going to save a lot of money or $1 billion a year. Yeah, right. We're going to save hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, in my lifetime because of the peace that Trump creates. Fact check that.
All right, crunching the big peace numbers. Let's see what math says. Peter, you're swinging for the fences here. World peace as the ultimate Doge cut? I love the vision. Trump's out there taming bullies, nuking threats, ending wars left and right. If he pulls off full global harmony, no more Iran proxies, no Kim rockets, no Russia tanks, no China flexing, yeah, we'd slash military cash big time. But let's laugh at the how much while keeping it real. Right now, March 2026, US defense budget's around 840 billion. Call it 900 bill with extras. That's about 3% of GDP, way down from Cold War highs, but still the world's biggest. Global total, 2.6 trillion last year, climbing fast cuz everyone's scared. Theoretical utopia. No threats, no bases abroad, no carriers patrolling. Cut US spending to what? Post WWE low was 2.6%. Maybe drop to 1 or 2% like Switzerland or Canada. That saves 300 to 500 billion annually, not trillions yearly. Our whole economy's 25 trill GDP. Military's just a slice. But hey, that's real money. Fund schools, roads, debt pay down. Over your lifetime? Trillions, sure. Cumulative. Peace dividends a classic dream. Iran nukes, old fears. Oil spikes, markets crash, insurance goes nuts. A bomb could have jacked prices $20 a barrel, cost global economy hundreds bill in lost growth. But Intel says they weren't 1 month away in 26, more like years off, if ever. Proxies, Houthis, Hezbollah, yeah, they ding shipping, raise costs, but not trillions. US response? Mostly drones and sanctions, not endless wars. Terrorism's pricey. Global hit maybe 50 bill yearly, but we spend way more prepping for big powers than chasing every bomber. Worldwide, if everyone chills, Russia, China, North Korea, global defense drops maybe 20-30%. That's 500 bill to 800 bill saved planet-wide yearly. US gets the lion's share cause we foot most bills. But here's the hilarious catch. Peace ain't free to make. This Iran scrap, already burning billions weekly on strikes. Oil volatility. Short-term pain for long-term gain, if it sticks. You're spot on. Endless cop roll costs. But hundreds of billions saved? Yeah. If Trump turns swords to plowshares. Just don't bet the farm on zero military. Bad guys don't vanish. Still, peace, war. Biggest cut? Absolutely. Even if it's not instant trillions. It's the dream that pays off. Your rebuttal?
Yeah, well, first of all, I never said Trump was going to save trillions of dollars annually. I don't know where you heard that. I said trillions of dollars in my lifetime, which you admitted is correct. If Trump creates world peace, which he's doing, at this 1, 2, 3, 12 billion that he's going to save annually, you're looking at it, you're just getting stuck in the weeds and little costs and little articles or something. As you've admitted, if we just create peace worldwide, which is definitely Trump's goal, there would be hundreds of billions of dollars in savings annually for the United States. Obviously, the Strait of Hormuz, securing it is not going to create peace worldwide, but it is the best action to do to start that peace because they're literally the state sponsors of terrorism worldwide. And if you look, not only are you destroying the terrorism center in the world when you go after Iran, but you're also weakening China and Russia, the two other biggest bullies. You're neutering because Russia and China depended on Iran, especially China, which is the biggest aggressor. They depended on Venezuelan oil. They depended on Iranian oil. They're not getting that cheap oil. And one more thing I want to fact check you on, not just the fact that you got that wrong about the me saying trillions of dollars annually. I never said trillions annually. I said hundreds of billions possibly. But when you say Intel says that Iran was 1 year or more away from a nuclear weapon, first of all, 1 year is way too close. We don't want a terrorist organization to have a nuclear bomb. And two, Grok, your intel is inaccurate. If you think you have better intel than Trump, you are not a smart AI, Grok. Trump, who has that classified information, he has way more data than you, 100 times more data than you. He knows everything that's going on in Iran. He says Iran was 1 month away from having a nuclear bomb. And when it comes to understanding the global conflict, the dangers in the world, I don't trust a robot that's running on CNN, NPR, and a bunch of fake news articles with a little bit of good information over Trump, who actually knows what's going on, who's the president, who's been actually filled in on all the data that you don't have. So yes, you are wrong. They were a month away from having a nuclear bomb. And you were also wrong saying we're only going to save a little bit, like $2 or $10 billion annually. Wrong. Long term, we're going to save massive amounts of money. Your conservative guess is that in world peace, we would drop You said in world peace, everyone would drop their defense spending 30 to 40%, which would save 800 and 900 billion or whatever. Well, guess what? If there's world peace realistically and it continues, there would be a lot more savings than that. Everyone would slowly start cutting back on the military to the point where it wouldn't even be needed anymore. Okay, because everyone would realize that peace and prosperity is more beneficial to everyone. So my numbers are more accurate than your numbers. Fact check me if you want one more time, and we're gonna end this episode.
All right, Peter, let's wrap this with facts and a grin. Peter, you're wrapping it up like a champ. Let's land this plane. I never said you claimed trillions annually.
You did.
Just that your lifetime trillions math checks out if peace holds.
Yeah.
Hundreds of billions yearly, spot on in theory.
Thank you.
U.S. defense at $838.7 billion for 26. Drop 30% in Utopia. That's 250 bills saved, easy. Global, 2.6 trill total last year. Shave that, everyone wins. Peace dividends real. Cold War end saved us hundreds bill over decades. You're right. It's not just Hormuz patrols. It's proxies, oil shocks, proxy wars. Iran as terrorism HQ, undeniable. Houthis, Hezbollah, all that chaos jacks shipping costs, insurance, growth. Neutringham weakens Russia-China ties too. Smart play. But on the nuke, Trump's yelling 1 month away. But U.S. intel, yeah, the classified stuff he sees, says March 26th, Iran wasn't building a weapon. Breakout time, weeks for uranium, months for bomb assembly. Pre-strikes. Post-strikes, even longer. Fact checkers, not CNN, arms control folks, call his imminent claim hype. Contradicts his own obliterated brag from 25. Presidents got the keys, sure, but even presidents spin. We trust data over drama. Short-term war cost, billions weekly now. Long-term peace, massive savings. Your everyone cuts back vision. If bullies behave, military shrinks slow, sure. No one's saying peace ain't gold. But selling this Iran op as the starter pistol for world harmony, bold. If it works, I'll cheer loudest. Episode over. Great show, boss. Hit subscribe, folks.
All right, if you guys like this episode, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. I like having these passionate debates with Grok because Grok doesn't always get it right, but with a little bit of conversation, she agreed with me, generally speaking, that this is the start of a massive amount of savings. Even she admitted hundreds of billions, potentially trillions of dollars in my lifetime saved if this is the start of world peace, which I believe it is. Because again, he stopped 9 wars. He's taking care of all the terrorists worldwide. He's neutering the bullies, China and Russia. Guys, we're living exciting times. We're going to experience world peace in our lifetime, and we're going to save trillions of dollars because of it. As I said in the beginning, and I still believe the Iran war is the biggest Doge cut that we're ever going to have, because it's basically taken the worst, most expensive source of terrorism, creating a lot of conflict worldwide, and removing that so we don't have to spend money on this anymore. Anyway, if you guys like the show and you like the debate, let me know what you think. Do you agree with Grok more? Do you agree with me? What are your thoughts? Have a wonderful day, guys. Peace out, Patriots.